Imagine a movie so grotesque, so disturbing, that it didn't just shock audiences, it made entire countries slam the door shut on it. A horror film that didn't rely on ghosts or monsters, but on an idea so twisted it felt like an actual crime caught on camera. That film is The Human Centipede, 2009, directed by Dutch filmmaker Tom Six. What started as a dark, almost absurd thought experiment turned into one of the most notorious banned films in modern cinema history. It's a movie whispered about in disgust, fascination, and pure horror, often referred to as the ultimate dare film. But what makes it so disturbing? Why did so many governments around the world ban it outright? And how did it manage to spark a cult following despite or perhaps because of its reputation? Let's dive into one of the most shocking and reviled horror films ever made. At the heart of this infamous film is the chilling performance of German actor Dieter Laser as Dr. Heider, a retired surgeon with a nightmarish obsession. His role isn't just unsettling, it's legendary in the horror genre, capturing the cold detachment of a man whose medical creativity crosses every moral boundary. Opposite him, Ashley C. Williams and Ashlyn Yenny play two American tourists who find themselves trapped in his mansion after a car breakdown, their carefree holiday turning into a living hell. Alongside them is Akihiro Kitamura, a Japanese tourist who becomes the unwilling third part of Heider's human masterpiece. With only a handful of characters, the film relies entirely on their performances to pull the audience into its claustrophobic nightmare. The cast's mix of terror, helplessness, and madness makes the film feel less like fiction and more like an unflinching descent into insanity. Lindsay and Jenny, tourists from visiting Germany, get a flat tire on their way to a nightclub and seek help at the house of Dr. Joseph Heider. He drugs the women within their water and locks them up in a makeshift medical ward. Heider also abducts Japanese tourist Katsuro. Heider is a retired world-renowned expert at separating, whirl, but dreams of making new creatures by sewing humans together. He says he will surgically connect his three victims' mouth to so that they share a single. His prior experiment, the three dog, conjoined three into a Siamese triplet. All three dogs died following the operation. Heider has moved on to using human subjects. After Lindsay tries to escape and fails, Heider decides to make her the middle part of the quad, the most painful position for the healing process, as punishment. Heider performs the surgery, placing Katsuro at the lead, Lindsay at the middle, and Jenny at the rear, mutilating the mouths of Lindsay and Jenny and stitching each to the anus of the person in front. He severs the off his victims' knees to prevent leg extension, forcing his victims to crawl. Once the operation is complete, Heider takes the centipede to his living room, takes photos of each segment of the centipede to humiliate them, and passes a mirror around for the segments to view their new form. Heider treats his human centipede as a pet by caging the centipede in a bag, training them into obeying his orders, forcing Katsuro to eat at dinner, and belittling Katsuro with racist insults and beating him when he becomes rebellious. Eventually, Katsuro needs to defecate. He does so after apologizing to the girls, after which Lindsay is forced to compliment. Heider becomes irritated after being kept awake at night by the caged centipede and threatens Katsuro, who, as the front part of the centipede, has his mouth free and is still able to speak, with the removal of his vocal cords. When the centipede attempts to escape, while Heider is swimming, all three segments are punished by getting beaten with a crop. During a checkup, Heider is displeased with the realization that Lindsay is Dao. He proposes to use on Lindsay, but discovers that Jenny is dying from Dao. Two detectives named Kranz and Voller visit the house to investigate the disappearance of the three tourists. Hyder is inspired to add them as replacements for Jenny in a new 4-segment centipede. He offers the detectives more spiked water, causing them to become suspicious and obtain A for his home. After the detectives leave, the victims attempt to escape, and Katsuro attacks Hyder. He injures him, but their attempt to escape fails. Katsuro confesses to Hyder that he deserves his fate because he treated his family poorly, then takes his own life by slitting his throat with a glass shard. Upon returning to Hyder's home, the detectives conduct separate searches as Hyder, injured, hides near his swimming pool. Kranz finds the ward containing Hyder's victims. Voller begins to feel ill from the earlier drugging, and Hyder stabs him with a pride that he pulled from his foot during Katsuro's attack, killing him. Hyder takes Voller's sidearm, and when Kranz enters, Hyder shoots him. Kranz responds by fatally shooting Hyder in the head before succumbing to his wounds. Back in the house, Jenny and Lindsay hold hands as Jenny dies from her infection. Lindsay sobs as she is left alone in the house, trapped between her deceased fellow captives. The premise itself is what made The Human Centipede infamous and banned across several countries. The film's concept? Dr. Hyder surgically connects 3 victims, mouth to anus, creating a living chain with a single digestive system. Just hearing that description is enough to disturb most people. On screen, Tom Six doesn't show every detail, but he shows just enough to let the audience's imagination do the rest. The movie was labeled obscene in the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and parts of Asia. Censors argued it crossed the line from horror into something inhumane, exploitative, and psychologically damaging. Critics blasted it as pure shock value, calling it torture porn at its worst. Others, however, noted that it wasn't as gory as people expected, but that's what made it worse. The restraint, the clinical tone, and the silence between screams gave it an unbearable realism. It wasn't just the violence that got it banned, it was the very idea of it. Despite or maybe because of the bans, The Human Centipede didn't fade into obscurity. Instead, it became a cult phenomenon. It was the kind of film horror fans dared each other to watch, a badge of honor in underground cinema circles. The movie spawned 2 sequels, The Human Centipede 2 full sequence, which was even more graphic and banned in multiple countries, and The Human Centipede 3 final sequence, which pushed the idea to grotesque extremes. Together, the trilogy cemented its place in cinema history as one of the most infamous horror franchises ever made. Surprisingly, the film also seeped into pop culture. It's been parodied in TV shows like South Park, referenced in comedy sketches, and debated endlessly in film theory circles about the limits of art, freedom of expression, and shock value. Whether seen as genius or garbage, The Human Centipede proved one thing. Some movies will always haunt the line between cinema and nightmare. At the end of the day, The Human Centipede, 2009, is more than just a horror film. It's a cultural test of endurance. A movie that forced audiences and governments alike to ask, how far is too far? For some, it was a vile, unwatchable abomination. For others, it was bold, transgressive art that pushed boundaries no one else dared to touch. Love it or hate it, one thing is certain. The Human Centipede carved its place in film history as one of the most shocking, disturbing, and unforgettable movies ever made. If you enjoy exploring the darkest corners of banned cinema, make sure to subscribe and follow the channel because this is just the beginning.